My professor failed me for plagiarizing my own life experience. The university president's response left the entire department stunned. The red F glared at me for my final paper turt, the one I'd spent 3 weeks writing about my childhood in a North Korean refugee family. Below it, my professor had scrawled, "Obvious plagiarism." I stared at his comment, my hands shaking. He thought I stole someone else's life story. I am a first-generation American. My parents escaped North Korea in 2001, spending 2 years in China before finally reaching the United States when I was just an infant. Growing up, our dinner conversations weren't about sports or dong shows. They were about public executions. My father had witnessed the famine that killed my grandparents, and the night my parents crossed the frozen Tumen River carrying nothing but the clothes on their backs and me inside my mother's womb. This was my political science final paper, Generational Trauma and Political Fluidity in North Korean Refugee Families. I'd interviewed my parents for weeks, translated their journals, and woven their experiences with academic research on authoritarian regimes. When I saw that F, something inside me broke. I'd spent my entire life code switching part being American at school and Korean at home, hiding my family's trauma to fit in. Now, the one time I finally shared our story in an academic context, I was being punished for it. I made an appointment with Professor Harmon immediately. When I entered his office, he barely looked up from his desk. "Professor T, here has been a misunderstanding about my paper," I began. "T, here is no misunderstanding," he interrupted. "That paper was not written by you. The sophisticated analysis of North Korean political structures and the first-person refugee narratives were clearly lifted from published sources. Those are my parents' stories," I said quietly. "I interviewed them myself." He laughed. "Come on, Jessica. You expect me to believe your parents are North Korean defectors? You've never mentioned this in class discussions. Why would I?" My voice was getting stronger. "We were discussing theoretical frameworks, not my personal background. The writing style alone is beyond your capabilities," he continued. "I've read your other work." That's when I realized what was happening. My previous papers had been deliberately dumbed down, my instinctive survival strategy as the child of immigrants. Don't stand out, don't seem too foreign, don't make waves. But for this final paper, I'd finally written in my authentic voice. "I am not accepting this grade," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. "I'd like to appeal." Professor Harmon's face hardened. "The Academic Integrity Committee meets next semester. Your graduation will be delayed pending their decision." I left his office and walked straight to the Dean of Creighton's. She listened sympathetically but explained that proper channels had to be followed. The committee wouldn't meet for 6 weeks well after graduation. That night, I called my parents and told them what happened. For the first time, I saw my father cry. "We came to America so you wouldn't be punished for speaking truth," he said in Korean. Something shifted in me. The next morning, I emailed every administrator at the university, including the president, with my paper attached, my parents' original journals, with translations, and a detailed explanation of what had happened. "I refuse to have my family's suffering and survival labeled as plagiarism," I wrote. "I refuse to miss my graduation because a professor cannot believe a Korean-American student could write about her own heritage with authority." 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was the university president's office. She wanted to see me immediately. When I arrived, Professor Harmon was already there, looking uncomfortable. The president, Dr. Rivera, a small woman with fierce eyes, gestured for me to sit. "I've read your paper, Miss Kim," she said. "It's extraordinary work." She turned to Professor Harmon. "And I've spoken with the department chair about your grading patterns. This isn't the first time you've accused students of color of plagiarism when they produce exceptional work." Professor Harmon started to protest, but she cut him off. "Jessica's paper includes family photographs and primary source material that cannot be found anywhere else. Did you even bother to check before making your accusation?" Dr. Rivera turned back to me. "Your grade has been changed to an M. Professor Harmon will be taking mandatory bias training before teaching any further classes. But she wasn't finished actioning. With your permission, I'd like to submit your paper to the Journal of Asian American Splout. It deserves to be published." 2 weeks later, I walked across the graduation stage with my parents watching. My father, who had spent a decade working night shifts so I could attend college, stood tall in the audience. That fall, my paper was published.